Stop buying these 5 overpriced tennis racket brands. I want to be honest with you about something. Last year, I spent £250 on a tennis racket, a Wilson. Looked incredible, felt premium in my hands in the shop, and I genuinely believed I was buying something that was going to transform my game. I'd seen the ads. I knew Federer used Wilson for years. I thought, yeah, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. I got home, went out to play, and I couldn't tell the difference from my old racket that cost 60 quid. None. Zero. I played worse, actually, because I was so in my head about whether I was holding it right and swinging properly to get the most out of it. That was the moment I started actually researching this stuff, and what I found genuinely shocked me. So today I'm going to break down 5 tennis racket brands that are massively overrated, the numbers behind why, and what you should actually be spending your money on instead. Let's get into it. The setup. Before we start, I want to give you one number that is going to completely change how you look at every tennis racket you ever buy. The average manufacturing cost of a tennis racket is $15 to $30. That's it. The racket that retails for £250 in the shop costs the brand about 20 quid to make. And I'm not making that up. That comes from sourcing data on the actual factories that produce them. Because here's the thing that the brands absolutely do not want you to know. Millions of tennis rackets are manufactured every year in contracted factories in China for brands including Wilson, Babolat, and Head. The same types of factories, often the same materials, different badge on the side. So when you're handing over £250 for a racket, you're not paying for superior manufacturing. You're paying for the marketing budget that convinced you to buy it. You're paying for the endorsement deal with the world number one. You're paying for the TV ads, the Instagram campaigns, and the 30 years of brand heritage they keep reminding you about. Keep that in mind as we go through this list. Right, number 1. Brand 1, Babolat, and specifically the Pure Aero. Now look, I've used the Pure Aero. I borrowed one off a mate for about 3 months while I was figuring out what racket to actually buy, and it's not a bad racket. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that the reason most people buy it has absolutely nothing to do with whether it suits their game. The reason people buy it is Carlos Alcaraz. Alcaraz is one of the most exciting tennis players in the world right now, and he uses the Pure Aero 98. 14 players in the top 100 men's rankings use Aero rackets. Babolat know this, and they lean into it hard in every single piece of marketing. Here's the problem. The Pure Aero line is officially designed for aggressive baseline players rated NTRP 3.5 and above who prioritize spin generation. That's not most people buying this racket. Most people buying this racket are beginners and casual players who just want to feel like Alcaraz. And it gets worse. The Pure Aero 2026 edition comes with claims of being 6% more aerodynamic and generating 3% more revolutions per minute. That sounds impressive, but those are marginal gains that only matter if you're already generating enough swing speed to notice the difference. If you're a 3.0 or below, you will never feel that 3% on court. Meanwhile, the Pure Aero 98 X2 bundle on Tennis Express right now is $619. Over $600 for 2 rackets, based largely on the fact that the best player in the world uses one. And Alcaraz, by the way, almost certainly has a custom-tuned version that's nothing like the one you'll pull off the shelf. Brand 2, Wilson, now Wilson. This one is personal for me, as I said at the start. Wilson is arguably the most famous name in tennis rackets. Federer used them for his entire career. Pete Sampras, Serena Williams. The legacy is real. The pedigree is real. But let me tell you what's also real. Wilson has a quality control problem that almost nobody talks about. Players and reviewers consistently report weight tolerances that are simply not acceptable for a racket at this price point. We're talking rackets coming in 5 to 10 grams over or under the stated specification. On a racket that costs 200 pounds, that's a serious issue. 5 to 10 grams might sound small, but in terms of balance, swing weight, and feel, it makes a noticeable difference, especially if you're buying 2 rackets expecting them to be identical. And then there's the paint. Wilson paint ships faster than almost any other premium brand. Players complain about it constantly on forums. For 200 quid, The finish should last more than 6 months. You're paying a premium price partly because of Federer's name on the marketing, and you're getting inconsistent manufacturing as a result. That's the Wilson tax. Quick reality check. By the way, this isn't unique to tennis. It happens in every sport. Nike signed the best footballer, Adidas signed the next one, and suddenly everyone wants those boots even if they're completely wrong for their playing style. Tennis just does it harder than most because the top players are so visible, so singular, and so associated with specific brands over decades. You don't just think of Federer, you think of Federer and Wilson. You don't just think of Nadal, you think of Nadal and Babolat. That association is worth billions to these companies, and the cost of building it gets passed directly to you. Right. Moving on. Brand 3, Head. And this one is interesting because Head actually makes some genuinely good rackets. The Speed Pro is well regarded. The Gravity series has a solid following. But Head have built a marketing machine around their ambassadors that I think has gotten out of control. Novak Djokovic has been a Head ambassador for over 15 years. Yannick Sinner endorses the Speed line. Coco Gauff endorses the Boom range. That's the current world #1 men's player, the reigning US Open champion, and one of the most marketable players in the women's game, all pointing you toward Head. And the result is prices that reflect the endorsement portfolio more than the product itself. The Speed Pro with Djokovic's name attached sits above $250. Yet when you strip out the branding, most experts say the main functional advantage of a $250 racket over a $130 racket is marginal for anyone playing below an advanced club level. Head's marketing for the 2026 Speed line describes their new high-bore technology as a composite material previously used in aerospace applications. And look, that's technically interesting. But when a brand starts using aerospace as a selling point for a tennis racket, you're deep in premium marketing territory. You're not buying spacecraft technology. You're buying a frame for hitting a felt ball on a clay court. The most expensive racket connected to Head, a Djokovic autographed model that sold at auction for over $100,000. Obviously, that's a collector's item, not a performance racket. But it tells you everything about how far brand association takes the price away from any rational relationship with what the product actually does. Brand 4, generic Amazon brands. Right, Brand 4. And this is a different kind of problem. If you've ever searched for a tennis racket on Amazon, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Pages and pages of rackets with names you've never heard of, claiming carbon fiber frames, professional grade strings, tournament-level performance, all for $25 to $40. Now on the surface, that sounds like a bargain, and I understand why people buy them, especially if you're just starting out and you don't want to spend a lot before you know if you even like the sport. But here's the reality. The manufacturing cost data I mentioned earlier, $15 to $30, applies to budget Chinese factories producing to the lowest possible spec. These Amazon brands are ordering from those factories with no quality control requirements, no material standards, and no compliance testing. You'll see words like carbon fiber honeycomb and aerospace grade composite in the listing. What you won't see is what grade of carbon fiber. Premium performance rackets from reputable brands use Toray carbon fiber, which is a specific high-grade Japanese material with known performance characteristics. Budget Amazon rackets use whatever carbon fiber is cheapest that week. The practical result is a racket that feels fine for a few weeks, starts to develop dead spots in the frame within a month or two, and then gives you inconsistent performance until you replace it. At which point you've spent $40, then another $40, then another $40, and you'd have been better off spending $100 on something mid-range that actually lasts. Brand 5, the Pro-endorsed limited editions. Brand 5 isn't one brand, it's a category, and it's the one that I think represents the most blatant money grab in the entire tennis equipment industry. Limited edition Pro-endorsed rackets. You've seen these. A player wins a Grand Slam or hits a milestone, and the brand releases a special edition racket to celebrate. The specs are identical or near identical to the standard version. The difference is the paint job, the serial number, and the signature on the grip. And the price doubles, sometimes more. I mentioned this in the context of another sport in a previous video, but the tennis world does this just as aggressively. These rackets perform no better than the standard version at the same price point. They are collectibles dressed up as performance products, and some of them end up on court with club players who genuinely believe the signature on the frame is going to help their backhand. It won't.